Welcome and thank you for joining us. We're going to get started in a few minutes. As a heads up, we are recording this. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will get started in a couple minutes. We're going to wait for a few more folks to arrive. We are recording this so that we can send it to you following the webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Hang tight. We'll get started shortly. Thank you. Hi, welcome everyone. Just one more minute before we get started. This is being recorded. Any questions that you have, I see we already have a couple that have been thrown into the chat. We will be sure to answer those at the end of this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Any questions that you do have, feel free to reach out via chat and we will be sure to get those answered. Thank you. Okay, hi. Thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Tiffany. I work with Polaris MEP, and we're really excited to have you here and to welcome Darcy. Rob is going to take over from this point on. He is our third-party specialist, so take it away.
Right. Hey, everyone. So for those in the audience who haven't worked with us before, Polaris MEP's sole mission is to help small and medium-sized manufacturers within the state of Rhode Island improve, grow, and increase profitability. So that means customize and affordable solutions for your top lines, bottom lines, and pipelines. It also means a one-stop shop for connections and resources within Rhode Island and across the United States. Polaris MEP Polaris MEP, the MEP stands for Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So I'm Rob Chipman, like Tiffany already said. My role is focusing on extending the solutions and services we can offer smaller manufacturers through partnerships with expert resources, like learning how to best prepare for an OSHA inspection. So luckily for the client and for us as Polaris MEP, we've already established a relationship with safety trainers. You'll be learning from Darcy Cook, who leads Cook Professional Services, a DBA, as safety trainers. Safety Trainers supplies expertise and support to more than 20 different industries throughout New England, including Rhode Island manufacturing. More than 60% of Safety Trainers clients have been with them for over 14 years. Polaris MEP clients rely on safety trainers for a variety of solutions, including OSHA 10-hour, their 30-hour training, record keeping, OSHA fines and violations abatement, and emergency management training. So after the webinar, you'll receive a request to share feedback on this event through a survey. Anyone who fills out the event survey will get a copy of this deck directly emailed to them, which will be nice to have. And now we can turn it over to our star of the day, Darcy.
Thank you, Rob. All right, good morning / afternoon to all of you for being here. My objective today is to bullet point out things that you might want to be thinking about, something that you might need to add to your to-do list, something that you want to put Google word searches in your, search engine, so that as OSHA is releasing certain information, you want to make sure that it's showing up in your inbox. So I would encourage you potentially to put some Google words in there and to keep up to date with things that are happening. We've got some changes over the last 2 years that have been rapidly happening. I feel like during COVID, everything was kind of focused on COVID. Things were happening. We're through that element of, manufacturing challenges. And now I'm quickly seeing changes happen in OSHA. And you guys are busy running your business, and it's hard for you guys to keep up with these changes. So let me kind of walk you through today, the next 40 minutes or so, some bullet point information that will help you make some decisions strategically to finish out 2024 and in preparation for 2025. So what you'll see in front of you is a slide talking about these 7 elements to a safety health management system. So you are all required, if you're on this webinar, you're all required to have some kind of way to manage and implement and maintain your safety program. Safety programs have lots of parts to it, different management systems. The one I'm showing you happens to be OSHA's. Some of you might be ISO certified and might use an ISO system. It doesn't matter what kind of system you're using, as long as you are maintaining the 7 key parts to your program. So first things first, the ones in the orangey color are the ones that typically will get you cited or fined. Management leadership, basically, I will talk about a little bit about the teams that you guys should be having in your organization, but this is where all the paper is created, documentation, policies, inspections, forms that need to be completed. I'm going to talk to you about a piece of paper that cost a lot of companies over $15,000 last year when I was doing abatement and mitigations with OSHA. The other 2 that you'll see that are in dark orange are hazard identification, hazard prevention, hazard corrective action, hazard abatement. Those are the 2 big ones that if your organization just worked on those 2 initiatives in 2024 and 2025, you'd save yourself a lot of money. And then the 4th major one is education and training. A lot of companies don't realize that the regulations do not require you to do training every year in every subject. And so we know that time is precious and limited, just like floor space in manufacturing is precious and limited. And so not that we don't want you doing training, don't not do good quality training. It's not that we don't want you to do it often. It's just you as an organization, you can have 2 companies next to each other. You all have to decide how to cross the finish line. We're not all going to take the same path to get there. By the way, OSHA is minimum compliance requirements, minimum, the very bottom of the bottom. And so when it comes to training, you guys really should have a training matrix. What trainings do you have to do? What does the frequency required by law? You should be doing a new hire program. You should also be doing it if your operation changes. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but these are the 7 majors. The orange ones are the ones that you should get expert in and get really good at first before you worry about the other 3. This is a word that keeps coming up in all of our meetings with new clients and existing clients, is really understanding the word competent versus qualified. So the marketing people of the world are really good at marketing ideas and making money off of new ideas that they create for you. So I just want you guys to know that most of the time, You do not have to hire people like me, a third party, to come in and do the training, or do your monthly or weekly inspection requirements. Oftentimes I find some companies are hiring outside providers to do those things for them. And if that is a choice, you have the money and you have the resources and you'd rather outsource that, that's great. But I think it's important for companies to understand that if the executive team, ownership of company deem an employee qualified or deem an employee competent, what's the difference between the two? Experience, certifications, licensing. But if you deem them to be able to deliver information to your organization, then you want to go ahead and do that. So by definition, it's a person who can identify hazards and then has the authority to take prompt action to eliminate them. That literally is all the definition is underneath OSHA. So Darcy, are you saying that I could name someone competent and or qualified to teach my lockout, tagout, authorized training in-house? Yes. Am I saying that you could do your forklift program in-house? Yes. Am I saying that you could do your hoist training in-house? Yes. Am I saying that you could do your hot work certification or welding? Yes. There are certain trainings that are going to allow you to choose someone in your organization to execute that for the rest of the organization. Now, if you're talking about something that requires an outside license or certification, so you guys are all in Rhode Island. In Massachusetts, we have some different licensing and certification requirements, but let's just talk about Rhode Island. The easiest one that I can explain to you is first aid, CPR, AED, and bloodborne pathogens. Every single person listening to this call right now must have a team of individuals trained in first aid, CPR, and AED, and bloodborne pathogens. The rule actually says one person trained during all hours of operation in all buildings on all shifts. And in order to maintain that, you typically have to have a few more people trained. Now, you could send someone from your company out to get an instructor's certification to become an instructor to teach that, or that might be something that you outsource. My point being is the word competent person or qualified person are very loose terminologies. And as long as you, the owner of the company, or you, the safety committee team, or you, the executive team, can justify why you're letting an employee do your in-house inspections, an employee do trainings and oversee those trainings, then you're okay to do that. I mean, let's be honest, in a world where, dollars and cents, inflation, cost, getting A players, more A players, when you get an A player, you want to keep an A player, and you obviously can utilize them to help with some of these elements of safety that we're talking about. Another definition or conversation that I want to identify is a job hazard assessment, or a JSA, a job safety assessment. So our job is always, all of us here, our company, the ownership, your employer, if you are the employee, if you're the employer, and then you're an employee of an employer, all employers are required to create a safe and healthy work environment. Am I saying we can eliminate hazards 100%? No. Everything's changing, everything's dynamic. We know that hazards going to present themselves, but the idea is see something, say something. It's to fix a hazard before someone gets hurt. It's to fix a hazard before there's physical damage done to property or raw materials or product that we're developing, whatever that case might be. And so the idea behind this is we have seen lots of companies last year get cited and fined and get in trouble for not having something called the job hazard assessment or job safety assessment. If you're listening right now and you've heard that word before, or you're a little unfamiliar with it and you don't understand the value or the importance of it, let me kind of break it up for you this way. One piece of paper, and we all know that nobody likes creating a lot of paper, right? Can you imagine adding more paperwork to more paperwork to more paperwork? No. Imagine one piece of paper, a job hazard assessment, being able to be used at new hire when you're trying to decide to hire someone. You show them the job description and you show them the job hazard assessment, meaning you're going to tell them the hazards are doing their job, and you're going to give them indications of what those risks are, what they need to do, PPE that needs to be used. Imagine if you guys hired someone whose job was going to be to go in a scissor lift in your maintenance department, or maybe they have to climb on ladders, or maybe they were going to have to go on the roof, and you hired someone in your maintenance department who literally is a fear of heights. It would be a lot easier if you disclose that back at the hiring and onboarding stage, that I am going to have to be in scissor lifts on roofs and on A-frame ladders, 8 feet or tall, so that at that moment in time I can say to you, hey, I have a fear of heights. I don't know if I'll be able to do that stuff, right? How about the no shave November? If in the job that your guys are going to hire me, it requires me to wear any kind of a respirator. And what happens if it's summertime and I have no beard when you hire me? But come no shave November, I'm growing out my beard and it's hunting season. So I have a beard September, October, November, December, January, February, and March, maybe spring, I start to shave my beard off. If you didn't disclose up front during that new hire onboarding process, hey, you're going to be needing to wear a respirator, right? That's going to create some challenges within the organization. You might have to buy a special respirator now because I didn't know that I had to shave. But this hierarchy of controls, these JHAs, used at new hire and onboarding, just talked about that. How about when you are going to train me to work in a specific department? Take out the JHA, have your team leaders, cell leaders, supervisors, managers of that department use that piece of paper as a way to train and onboard me. What happens when you guys get short in another department? You have to move me to another department. I'm going to guess a lot of you have gaps in paperwork. That same document could actually be used now to train me to move into another department. Training records, by the way, go back, and you need to have a record of 5 years. That's how far back OSHA can actually ask for training records, is 5 years. So you want to make sure that you're creating that paper trail along the way. So one piece of paper, new hire process, one piece of paper, onboarding training, one piece of paper, onboarding training for the new department that you're switching me through. Same piece of paper. What happens when somebody is caught doing something unsafe, a near miss? What happens if there's actually an injury or an accident that occurs and you have to abate it? You have to decrease the risk and likelihood that that's going to happen again. So you pull out that piece of paper and you change the process so that we know that we are decreasing the risk of that situation being repeated again. Same piece of paper. When you guys go to buy PPE, purchasing of PPE, you all know that gloves are not all created equal. And so if you have to have cut resistant level 7 gloves in this department, but you need to have the rubber, butyl, chemical resistant gloves in another department, and maybe if you guys are using acetone, or if you guys are using MEK, you can't use just a regular nitrile disposable glove. You have to use a latex one, but you're worried about latex allergies. So then you have to maybe teach them to do it in layers. Whatever you guys determine, you guys have to do the hazard assessment. But what will help your purchasing department, instead of them going on Amazon and getting the best deal because they saw something marketed, they need to know exactly what PPE they need to purchase for your department. The job hazard assessment is going to dictate that. So we never have the wrong type of PPE in our departments. Also, side note, if you guys are buying off the website and you guys are not using like a third-party sales person, and you guys are just ordering on Amazon or Prime or Google or whatever best deals, don't steer away from the companies that are buying that say OSHA approved. They say meets OSHA requirements. PPE, you definitely want to make sure it meets ANSI, ANSI requirements, or NIOSH, NIOSH requirements. So OSHA doesn't actually endorse or enforce PPE that way. They point to those key national standards research people. If you guys are ever wondering who sticks a hot dog in the safety shoes and then smashes the shoes to make sure that your toes don't get crushed, that's not OSHA doing that. If you ever wondered who takes the nail gun and sticks it up against the glasses and shoots nails in a mannequin to see that the safety glasses work, that's not OSHA. That's ANSI and NIOSH. So you want to be really mindful of the PPE that you're buying. So job hazard assessment. Why am I spending so much time on it? Because last year, one of the major things I saw OSHA doing was requiring companies to write these as proof as part of their abatement process to citations and fines. And if you guys have to write a job hazard assessment or a job safety assessment, once OSHA comes in and fines you, you have a limited time to do that. And this can be a significant undertaking, and we don't want to be that disruptive to your operation. If you guys can start learning what a JHA is now and chipping away at it and having these in place, this will save you a lot of time, effort, and energy. The one thing I can tell you is prevention always costs less than being reactive to situations and circumstances. So again, if this is a new terminology for you, you really want to learn what a job hazard assessment is, how to use this one piece of paper and start incorporating it into your safety plan. If you guys are sitting here going, JHAs, oh, we got those JHAs, we write those all the time, we have those for every department, then you guys, big check mark. This is huge, because this is one of the requirements that I'm seeing, not only from the Department of Labor, but also from OSHA. And if you recently had any Department of Environmental Protection audits, DEP, which I feel like I've been in a ton lately, DEP is now making us show our work and things that we're doing and how we're coming up with decisions that we're making within the organization. So it's a tool that I want you guys to be thinking about for 2024 and 2025. And the reason I want you to be thinking about JHAs is because I'm going to be showing you costs in a second. I'm also going to be showing you some new initiatives that OSHA is going to be doing. And again, if last year they were making these companies write JHAs as part of their abatement process, then I can tell you it's definitely going to be part of the rest of 2024 and into 2025's abatement process. So prevention definitely costs less. And if you guys are here and you're in the middle management, you're someplace between, the people who hold on to the money and make the dollars and cents, executives and ownership, and you have your frontline supervisors, managers, employees, and you're in the middle someplace, maybe you're the safety team, maybe you're the HR person, maybe you're head of operations. You guys have to somehow oftentimes communicate cost effectiveness, right? And so there's a slide that's coming up next that OSHA has what's called a pays calculating formula. And so what it's going to help you guys do is most companies, when you look at this iceberg, they know the cost of safety, but they only know the direct costs. They know what their workers' comp claims are. They know what their insurance or costs are. They understand if they have to hire someone, what those hiring costs are, or if they have to replace me because I'm out for a period of time with either a temp to hire or day labor or whatever the case may be. Those are tangible costs. I will tell you that when I sit with companies, one of the things I ask them is, in your budget, do you guys have a line item that says safety? And do you have money allocated to all of your costs related to what you're going to face for safety this year? And basically 99.9% of every single company will say, no, we don't have a safety budget. If we don't have a safety budget and we need to buy a bucket of yellow paint, or we need to have our electrical panels arc flash labeled, or we need to get, set up a hazardous waste accumulation space using spill containment, and we didn't buy those, or we don't have spill kits set up and we have to buy those. Where's that money coming from? You guys are pulling it out of different department area expenses to come up with money to put towards safety. And so basically people way smarter than you and I, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, OSHA, and the insurance agencies. So those three big agencies, basically we give them all the data. They have all the data related to workplace injuries. They know the costs associated with it. They all got together and they said, hey, what can we do with the history? They have a 50-year history. That's all. OSHA's been around 52. I think I'm 52 or 53. Same as long as I've been around, OSHA's been around. So that history, they finally put together and they put it into this formula. You guys might want to know about this tools formula, because when you have to advocate costs in order to get something purchased, this calculator is going to show you what the potential costs are if you don't buy the bucket of yellow paint, if you don't gate or guard that transformer in place, if you don't fix a window, right? Like it's going to show you what those costs look like. So here's how it works. You guys can Google it, go to OSHA Pays. It's going to say to you, okay, what do you want to simulate? Let's say we want to simulate a laceration, someone getting stitches. You're going to click the drop down for laceration for the stitches. And then after that, you're going to put in what you operating margin. The default for manufacturing is 3%. And then you're going to say, how many injuries did you get this year? So whether it was last year or this year, let's say you do it based on one injury. Maybe you take your OSHA logs and you look and see how many of those you had last year, 3, 4, 5. And then you actually do this calculation. And what's great about this calculation, if you have to demonstrate to other people that it will cost you more after you get stitches versus getting the equipment or the right cut resistant PPE or filing down a sharp edge of some sort, this program is going to help you because it'll tell you how much the direct costs are, how much the indirect costs are, and it's also going to tell you how much new revenue you have to go out and get to cover those additional costs that were never put into your budget. So if you're wondering what the number is, it's 2.7. Not my number, it's their number. So basically, whatever, if you went to your HR person and said, how much did Darcy's ankle sprain cost us last month? How much did Darcy's crushed finger injury? How much did Darcy's laceration? How much did Darcy's contusion, bruising cost us? And whatever that number is in workers' comp, you just multiply it by 2.7 and it's going to give you the real number, the total costs, all those miscellaneous hidden things that we never added up together. This is really important if you guys have a safety committee. Safety committees can really use this to your advantage to help to present, putting together a budget, right? What is the cost for the year going to look like? What are your training costs going to look like? What are your maintenance and service costs going to look like? What are going to be any special projects? Ideally, you guys should be taking capital projects and putting into a separate bucket, but just the day-to-day operation of having some dollars and cents. Oftentimes when we do investigations, some of the things that we're finding out is your process for your maintenance and facilities guys to get a PO signed off is taking so long, and then they have to buy a piece, buy something, get it shipped and delivered. All that time goes by and it's really putting the company at risk and it's just costing you more money versus giving your maintenance facilities guys the go ahead to buy anything on a credit card up to $500. And after $500, let's say they need a PO and need to get it approved. That could speed up that process related to safety. Other things is sometimes the maintenance facilities, we find that routine PM, preventative maintenance on your machines and your equipment, your fork trips, your hand and power tools, things that they need on a regular basis, that you guys don't give them an allocated budget to have those supplies readily available on the shelf. So if something fails and something breaks down, they can just go ahead and fix it and switch and change it out. Instead, they have to go to that PO system. They got to wait for things to be delivered. Again, it's downtime and loss of time. All that numbers, all that time adds up to additional costs related to you. In addition to those costs, you guys, OSHA has been going up and up in their citations. Now, let me just kind of talk you through this. Up until 2022, right, they hadn't really changed their numbers in a really long time. And one of the things about all of you listening, if you've never been in trouble before, if you're classified as a small business, even if you got a citation from OSHA, they would reduce those fines for you. You'd never have to pay 100% if you didn't what's called an informal meeting, meaning from the time OSHA leaves to the time you get a letter telling you how much this is going to cost, during that time, you guys should be fixing everything that OSHA found when they were there at that citation. If you fix all that stuff, you get into an informal meeting and tell them, hey, we fixed everything before we got the letter. Here's proof that we fixed everything. Usually you can get those things reduced for, like I said, not being a repeat vendor, being a small business. And if you did hire someone like me, a third party, OSHA, or you don't have to hire me as a third party. You can hire a third party consultant, or if you got involved with OSHA's free consultation program, either or, they'll also typically reduce those fines for about 50%. Okay. So I love the free OSHA consulting program, but you should be cautious before you do that. You should know that you should bring them in to ask them to look at specific things, not give them carte blanche to your whole organization. So you should restrict and limit what you're asking them to help you with. It will be free, but whatever they find, they expect you to complete in a timeline. When you hire a private person, they're on your team. So they understand timelines, dollars and cents, whatever. They will work with you over an extended period of time. With OSHA, you'd have to keep asking for requests of extension. And sooner or later, those extensions are going to run out. They expect you to finish it. So if you've got the time, you've got the resources, and you want to fix things, call OSHA's free consulting. Great idea. If you're not ready to go that route, then you should call back Polaris and let Polaris let us help you get yourself where you need to be. But let's just talk dollars and cents. I used to think that we were of value, not that we aren't, but I used to think that we were more valued because just by hiring us, you'd get a 50% reduction in penalties. Because ultimately, we want to take that money, we want to allocate it into your safety program. But here's the problem. OSHA's going up and up and up on their citations. So when your citations in total used to be at like $20,000 or $30,000, and we got the 50% reduction, now we're at $10,000 to $15,000. Then we get, first time, then we get, this is not willful, then we get your small business, then we could get those down into even single digit fines. Then we would get you on a payment plan and you paid over time. It became reasonable. You guys, the fact that their numbers keep going up, they went up to the $15,000 mark in 2023. And then in January 2024, they went up another $1,000 practically. So in 2024, things like, I'm going to show you an example in a second. They can start at $16,000. Now, do you get a $16,000 fine for everything they find? No, they can reduce it by those things that we talked about a few minutes ago, good behavior, small business, getting help, but they also can increase it, meaning they found it in multiple places. The employees, when they did the interviews, are telling me that they've been telling you this for years or months and you're ignoring it. Then those fines can go up and up and up. So there is some subjectivity. There's a guide. OSHA does follow a guide, but there also is some subjectivity in the discussion. The person who comes in and does your inspection is not the person that writes the dollar amount next to your fines. That goes back to the area directors. By the way, in Rhode Island, you guys are lucky, as you guys have one area director. You guys have one hub in Providence. Here in Massachusetts, although we take care of all of New England, one of the challenges for the Massachusetts employees is they have 3 OSHA locations, 3 OSHA enforcement agents. You guys only have 1, which is a good thing. But I will tell you that they've all hired. They've done hiring. They're all out training. And they've also done some crazy stuff where they're actually using an NAIC code. You guys, if you don't know what your NAIC code is, most of you are probably going to fall under a manufacturing version, but your NAIC code now gives OSHA. Basically, I want you to think about them taking all the NAIC codes, sorting them, sticking them into a hat. And then now it's not just about someone getting hurt anymore or someone complaining. It's now they pull your name out of a hat and they show up for these inspections. Last year, that was most of the citations that were happening were not complaints of employees or actual injuries, but it was their names getting pulled out of a hat and people showing up. So let me give you a couple of things. One form right now, make a note. This will be worth the entire webinar that you just said. All of you who have to do lockout, tag out procedures. That means you have machines with more than one energy source, 2 machines. If you have lockout, tag out, that means you have procedures. And that means you have a lockout, tag out program. One piece of paper, hear me, cost so many companies last year, $15,000. One piece of paper. It is called the periodic, not occasional, random, at least annually, once a year inspection form. Google it, Chat GPT it if you don't have one. Get your Chat GPT is the new AI, by the way, which will produce safety documents for you. If you're not familiar with it, we'll do an AI webinar at another point in time to tell you guys, you should never start with a blank piece of paper. You guys should actually borrow, put together and customize things for yourself. So AI is definitely a way that's going to take us a new direction for safety, which is great. But that one piece of paper, if you guys don't have it, and they're there because of lockout, tag out, someone got hurt, someone complained, it's going to cost you $16,000 for not having that one piece of paper. I can't even tell you how many people last year for one piece of paper. It's crazy. Other things that I saw. Let me show you my buddy. Let me see. Where is he? Right here. I'm going to skip ahead. Let me show you my buddy, Chris. So Chris owns a seafood manufacturing facility up in Salem, Gloucester area, okay? And so Chris has a great operation. We've been friends for years. He knows his OSHA rules, but here's the deal. He missed one. So he had the eye wash. See the bottle of eye wash that you see in the picture right there on the top? Okay, so he had bottles of eye wash around his building, but he missed one important piece to the rules. The rules say if you have a corrosive, bleach is a corrosive, among other cleaning chemicals that you guys use. If you have a corrosive in your building, you can't use those bottles of eye wash. You need to have a 15-minute eye wash flow. So that means you either mount it to or plumb it in, right, to a system, which is the other one of the versions, or you take the big green box in the bottom left-hand corner. So we took Chris, we ordered a big box on the bottom left-hand corner, and it cost him $249.99, but it was already too late. Why? Because his name, his NAIC code got pulled out of the hat. None of his employees got hurt. No one complained. He randomly got selected, and they showed up and they came to his building. And because he did not have a 15-minute eye wash flow and he had corrosives in his building, they charged him $6,000 for not having that eye wash, you guys. I argued and argued and argued with them. When we done, the lowest that they would go down to was $2,000. Okay, so this is a $249.99 eye wash station. He had eye wash, but it didn't meet the rules. He put this one up in less than 24 hours, had his people trained in less than 24 hours, and I still could not negotiate it down below $2,000. We don't want that to be you guys at all. So we're seeing these crazy fines coming through the door in terms of the cost of doing it. The other thing that I want you to know that I saw happening for the first time is if you guys use temp or temp to hire agencies, for the first time last year, I saw OSHA not only cite you, the person who's hiring the temp to hire, but I also saw them cite the agency that you got your employees from, because that agency failed to keep these employees safe, and so didn't the company that hired these. So this is where multi-employer, 2 different sets of employees on your property comes into place. If you are not comfortable or familiar or understand what it means with temp to hire or day labor, or hiring the electrician, hiring the plumber, hiring the guy who's going to pave the driveway, put up new signs, the cleaning company that cleans and shampoos, waxes the floors and shampoos the rugs on the weekend. They are third parties that come into your building. And I saw OSHA cite third parties in a multi-employer in manufacturing, which I had not seen at all. So that's important if you guys understand those rules. Do you have good... Most of you guys only, all right, if I'm your third party and I come in and I do any of those services for you, you know what you guys ask me for? You ask me for my certificate of insurance, and you ask me for my W-9. None of you even asked me for my certification or license to make sure I'm licensed as a safety professional. You guys have been doing this 30 years. No one has ever asked to actually see my license to see if I really have a safety license. Your electricians have to have licenses. Your plumbers have to have license. Your construction guys that come in should have a construction supervisor's license. You should see the permits. You actually should be asking them for more than just their certificate of insurance and their W-9. Why? Because if they're on this website and they have citations and fines, if they've been in trouble with OSHA, that means my problems become your problems. NAIC code, that's what this slide is about. You guys need to know what your NAIC codes are now, because if you're classified incorrectly, or if you have multiple NAIC codes, we have one for your warehouse and shipping, you have one for your actual production. Maybe you guys do R&D, so you have a different NAIC code for R&D. So you have 3 NAIC codes under one company. Okay. Well, those 3 NAIC codes are getting thrown into buckets. You want to know what the buckets are? Here, I'm going to show you what's happening on a national level and on a regional level. And so these are the top 6 cited. Hey, Darcy, you know what? We have some things good with safety, but you know what? We really need to step up our game, or we've kind of lost track of it. We need to get back into really paying attention to it, get our safety team on board, get our inspection requirements going, get our training on a consistent platform, really building this. Where do we start? Great question. These 6. Why? Because these are the top 6. These are the ones that manufacturers are getting in trouble for. You're all getting in trouble for hazardous communications. Failure to label containers. Secondary labeling container has to be under the global harmonization standard. You don't have your safety data sheets up to speed. You don't have a master cover sheet for your safety data sheets. You guys, not having a master cover sheet costs you $16,000. Not having your SDSs up to speed is going to cost you $16,000. Not having one bottle labeled incorrectly or worn, torn off, going to cost you $16,000. This is low-hanging fruit that you should not be spending this kind of money. Respiratory protection. Do you guys actually have a respiratory program? Do you have a voluntary D program? Have you gotten your people medically cleared? If people are in half mask with cartridges, they have to be medically cleared by a physician. Are you getting fit testing done? Let's make sure we have our fit testing done. Third one, hazardous energy. This one I told you last year, so many people, we had to add 2 sentences into everyone's policy, and then we had to give them this piece of paper and have them go fill it out because most manufacturers did not understand about the periodic inspection requirement. Not to mention, you have to have a written procedure for every piece of equipment. That's how your people are supposed to shut down and turn on and turn off. You're like, Darcy, we don't do that. We hire third parties. Well, your third party needs to know how to do it too. These are the things that are costing big dollars and cents in manufacturing. Power industrial trucks, fork truck operations, okay? Do you have all the rules in place for that? Machine guarding, this is actually a national emphasis program right now. This one in Rhode Island, we had 3 companies in Rhode Island have this get NAIC code, means that you have certain equipment that could chop off my fingers. Their NAIC code was pulled out of hat. I had 3 Rhode Island companies all get cited in a major way because of this machine guarding standard. No one called, no one got hurt. You know what was the #1 culprit? All of you listening, do you have a bench grinder? Whether it's on a pedestal or whether you have it mounted to a bench, do you have a grinder? The grinders were costing people last year $15,000 a piece because they didn't have guards, or the guards, the gap. You guys, this piece of equipment has a gap requirement. It can only be 1/4 of an inch at the top and 1/8 of an inch at the bottom. You have to train your people in Allen wrenches. So as the wheel is getting smaller, they have to adjust the guards. It cost people thousands of dollars last year, especially 3 Rhode Island companies. And last is your electrical. Do you have your electrical safety? Do you guys know what NFPA 70 is? Are we doing live troubleshooting and testing? Does everyone have their certification signed off for the 2024 NFPA 70E 2024? Every 3 years, probably someone in your maintenance facilities department needs to have that. Here's the regional emphasis program. You guys, this is all changing, by the way. You guys are in region 1. We are the New England states. You're going to see in a few slides, they're changing the terminology. We're now going to be in the Boston region. They're changing it from numbers to actual names. So very soon you guys are going to see that we're in the Boston region. Anyone who's in the Boston region, these are the reasons. This is the NAIC code. They're going to pull out the names out of the hat. So if you're manufacturing, you could have noise levels. So that could be a reason they can come knock at your door. And you have power industrial trucks. Those are the 2 reasons locally. They don't even need a complaint. They don't even need anyone to get hurt. They're going to come through your door. The other way is national. So this is everybody. It has nothing to do with New England. Everyone. And these are the 2 big ones I saw last year. Last year, I saw hazardous machinery. That's amputations. Again, three companies in Rhode Island that we had to mitigate. You guys, the next one is going to be heat stress. If you guys are not familiar with the new heat stress rule that's coming out, I got a slide for that in a second. That's happening. All of you who do anything with stainless steel and air quality, industrial hygiene, if you're exposing your employees to stainless steel under heat, then there's an air quality that gets triggered there. Silica, they were all over silica in manufacturing. How many of you guys have sandblasting machines? You know, the big square box, you put your hand in, and whatever the medium is that you're using in it creates a silica exposure. Warehousing and distribution. You guys, that's because of the forklifts. That is just, if your NAIC code talks about warehousing and distribution, they're going out just looking on these things. So I saw more of these kinds of inspections last year than I had seen based on complaints, as I said, or people actually getting hurt. So here's some other things that you guys need to be thinking about. Job hazard assessments. I told you that this is something that you need to make part of your new initiative coming up. It's going to be a standard requirement with OSHA now. Near miss programs. See something, say something. Are you guys doing inspections? Do you have employees that can put a suggestion box in place? Life safety. Do you guys, life safety inspection checklist. If you don't know, every single month, not a third party. Every single month, you have to have employees walking around your building, signing off on fire extinguishers, signing off on your first aid kits, signing off on your eye wash stations, manually testing for 30 seconds, all of your emergency lighting. Once a year, you have to do that for an hour and a half, by the way. You need your overhead doors have to be inspected. There's an actual list of mandatory and required monthly inspections that you have to be doing, plus annual inspections where you have to hire a third party. If you don't have that list, you should get that list. Also, do you have an incident accident reporting process? Do you have a team of people who do root cause analysis. How do we make sure this doesn't happen again and actually execute those corrective actions? And the other things that they're looking for is the preventative maintenance schedule. So do we have preventative maintenance schedule? Do we have documentation and proof that preventative maintenance is happening on a regular basis? Changing belts, greasing, oiling, having our fork tricks, corrected, bringing in crane safety, mass crane. You guys are in Rhode Island can use mass crane, and it's probably me, one of the best groups or that go out there and do hoists and cranes that are indoor, your indoor gantry cranes. Other things, I will tell you, we had a company get cited because they did not have a first aid team. I've been talking about this for 30 years. You are all required to have a first aid team. I just never seen OSHA cite a company. They cited a company because a person fell off a ladder, got seriously hurt. Nobody knew what to do. And when they came in to do the investigation and they interviewed all the employees were like, we don't know. We don't know. We don't have a first aid trained team. We didn't know we were supposed to call. We didn't know who the manager supervisor. You have to have a first aid trained person. You also need to have individuals trained in how to clean up blood or other potentially infectious material. You need to have a team of people trained on how to clean up your hazardous chemical spills. You guys, all of you who have machine oils all over the floor, there's a big difference. You want to be using a speedy dry to clean up those spills. You don't want to be using absorbent pads and pigs. And the reason being is because when you get oil in a pad, it becomes hazardous waste that you have to pay a third party to take away. If you take oil and clean it up with speedy dry, you can throw it into regular trash, and that's a massive saving. So do you have all the chemicals that could get spilled today? Do you have directions so the employees make the right choices so it costs you less? And you don't want to be throwing stuff in the trash that you don't want to. You think OSHA's bad? You definitely don't want DEP knocking at your door. So do you have a safety committee? They're the ones I love because they manage safety. Many hands make for light work. So it's time to establish a safety committee. Get them meeting consistently to chip away at these things. Someone's going to be doing those monthly life safety inspections, and you should be doing what I call near miss inspections. See something, say something, fix it. You have to have a team trained to clean up blood or other infectious material. You need to have a team that deals with hazardous chemical spills. You need a first aid trained team, and you need a team of people who are looking at injuries that have occurred and coming up with solutions to decrease the risk and likelihood that they'll happen again. So here you go, quickly changes. OSHA's now changing us. We're going to be called Boston. The regions, they're merging a couple of regions. You guys, they're adding more agents to all of these locations. They've talked about it. You guys can Google everything that I'm talking, fact check everything, put in these keywords, and you'll be able to see how it's going to impact you. It's going to impact you because they're going to have more resources to do more investigations and more citations. Other thing is they talked about here is you guys last year, for 2023 were mandatory having to upload into the new portal. You guys had to have a home office. Every building's now considered a satellite. Now the training records are publishing the name. I opened it up. The link is right here. You guys are gonna get this PowerPoint. It has the company names. There's like 39,000, I think, on this spreadsheet that I got for you guys. It has the company names. It tells me all the injuries, the total kinds of injuries that you guys have had. It basically gives me real-time data. It tells me your NAIC codes. It's all in this report. And so what happens now is OSHA is going to be able to use this data faster and quicker to make changes in rules. They're moving quicker than I've ever seen before to make changes in rules, add-on rules. So you guys definitely want to have some of these key words put into your Google search so emails show up in your inbox so you know when certain things are changing related to the impact. So if you did not attend the webinars that we did last year with Polaris on how to do your new OSHA logs, some of you have to do OSHA 301s now. That is a different report. Some of you just did workers' comp claim reports. Some of you had an in-house accident incident report form. Some of you now are mandated to also fill out the 301 report. That's extra paperwork. Added layers. Some of you never had to upload into the portal before. Now you have to electronically upload. Some of you have more than one location, but you filed everything under one location. You can't do that anymore. You got to have 3 locations. If you have 3 buildings, each building has to be uploaded separately. If this is sounding foreign to you, you're going, oh my God, I didn't know anything about this. This year I only filed everything under one building. Yes, I filed it by March 15th, but do I have to do 301s? Then you need to look into that because those are all changes that happened and are mandatory as of this past reporting year. Other things, on April 19th, 2024, they put out, hey, manufacturing, we're coming after you in construction. That's where they're focusing on. Manufacturing, construction goes back to those NAIC codes. The other things is the heat stress plan. This link is right here in here. Number one, you should all be downloading posters in English and Spanish or whatever other languages you have. You have to post heat stress posters, but when our hot season starts. So basically, I have all our clients do it from Memorial Day to Labor Day, which is our highest heat, as an educational piece. You guys, next year, right now, look at the bullet points on the slide. After it hits 80 degrees or higher outside in the heat index, we in manufacturing, not just construction, we in manufacturing will now have to put heat stress plans together. There are rules, there are presented rules, there are proposed rules right now sitting on OSHA's desk. They are deciding what the final rule is going to look like by the end of 2024. So now you're going to have to do things like have water breaks and water coolers, have access to cool areas, do wellness checks on your employees and document that. There's a whole new set of rules coming down on these heat stress plan that you guys need to prepare for. So start investigating it. Put that key Google word in so you start seeing what OSHA is putting out about this new heat stress plan requirement. The other thing too is the walk around rule. If you guys have unions and labor groups as part of your industry and part of your job, you should know there's a whole new regulation as of May 31st, 2024 about having third parties who are non-employees walk with OSHA during OSHA inspections who are representing other employees. So there's a whole new module on this that teaches OSHA agents how to qualify whether or not they're going to let me walk around with you, right? So as a safety expert, all of our clients call us. Why? Because right here, it's highlighted. We're knowledgeable, we're skilled, we have experience. Are we reasonable and necessary? Yes. Is the union representative? I don't know. These are the new conversations that are starting to happen. Not to mention you as employers and owners, you have private trade secrets that you don't want everyone seeing or having access to. So there are these new rules and guidelines that if union or labor boards are part of what you guys do, you should look at how to appropriately prepare for an OSHA visit and whether or not you want them present or not present and what that's going to look like. Also, I think Polaris last year was really good. They gave you guys one of our templates last year, what to do when OSHA or the Department of Environmental Protection shows up at your door. We gave you guys a one-page SOP on how to act, how to behave, what they should be calling, what they should be doing, what the do's and don'ts were to help you guys survive through that and control what's about to happen during that investigation. Other things too, as we wrap up, is the Department of Labor does this all the time. They ask for feedback. So the fact that the Department of Labor is asking for feedback from all of us on the new whistleblowing rules, you guys should take concern of that. You guys have a much more educated workforce. Your employees know who OSHA is. Your employees understand that safety is part of what is required in the workforce. Now, OSHA now is doing lots of outreach, lots of education. The whistleblower means that me as an employee working for you, I have the right to call OSHA and tell them that you are creating an unsafe environment, or tell them that I've told my supervisor several times that this is unsafe and I'm concerned about it and nobody has done anything. They're going to be putting a lot of outreach and education for those of you guys who have got, you know, your stuff together, right? You've got the baseline policies, you're doing trainings, you're doing inspections, you've got a safety committee, you've got all those things in it, and you're working it and you're doing it. I'm not so much worried about you. What I am worried for those of you who don't have a safety committee, who aren't doing the monthly inspections, who don't have your training logs up for the last 5 years, who don't have current policies and procedures in place, who are missing that one page on the lockout tag, or who don't have the safety data sheets up to speed. All of that is going to come back in a big way. And it's time for you guys to really start chipping away at safety across the board. All right, those are the short, quick updates I wanted to give you. Couple of closing statements that I also wanted to tell you is that mental health and suicide has become part of OSHA's new educational outreach. I can guarantee you in the next 2 years, I guarantee that we're going to see a directive. Workplace violence has now been added to employee action plan requirements. And I believe that we're going to see very shortly about mental health and suicide. They've been sending out a lot of releases, a lot of resources. They have lots of posters and educational material now posted on their website for you guys as it relates to workplace violence and mental health illness. And something that we've never seen before for the first time ever is that we have car accidents. So you guys, car accidents, number one, Number 2 is falls from a height. Sorry, I lost my PowerPoint. I want to put it back up here. I apologize. Falls from a height and workplace violence, suicide, and domestic violence. So if you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics right now and you say, what are the top 3 ways someone's going to die at work today? Number 1 is car accidents. There's a lot of us on the road for work-related incidences. Number 2 is workplace violence, suicide, and homicide. And number 3 is falls from a height. That's a telling tale, you guys. Workplace violence, mental health, suicide in the workplace is a new topic of conversation. The world is changing. It's something that you guys need to add in. If you don't know what the word high-risk termination means, you should be writing high-risk termination policies. That's an HR thing. Safety can support that. But these are all new initiatives that you guys should be looking at and the change in the next, I would say, 2 years. All right, Rob, Tiffany, back to you guys.
Wow, thank you, Darcy. And nice to end on a high note too. But really informative, really. So we do have a couple of questions. I want to ask, because this was a lot of stuff that you just went over, right? And you did do it very, very quickly. So I am going to be sending out this, the slideshow for you guys for sure. But I do want to ask, for somebody that is, you know, hearing all of this stuff, maybe for the first or second time, and is just like a little bit overwhelmed in terms of the amount of things that could potentially need guidance, assistance, just a professional set of eyes on them of how they can fix it or change it. What would that look like? So they would contact us, right? And then they would be moved to you. And once that happens, they would kind of discuss what their specific needs are and then move forward for a tailored plan from there. Is that right?
Yeah. So you guys, so 2 things, right? I've been doing this for 30 years. And what we figured out what works and doesn't work. So let me just tell you what will work for all of you. You all need to establish a safety committee. That safety committee needs to create a 12-month calendar, and that 12-month calendar needs to be one focused topic at a time. So the OSHA book is this thick. You need to rip out all the pages that don't apply to you. Whatever's left in this book, that's your responsibility. Safety is a big elephant. Can't eat it in one bite. Got to break it down into small pieces. If you feel like you don't have the resources or enough time or enough expertise and you need the support for that, we will basically create a snapshot in a moment of time. You guys, there's a lot of things that you can do on your own. So what you do is, yes, get a hold of Polaris. Rob would then basically be like, hey, Darcy, let's jump on a Teams meeting. We'd all chit chat and we'd figure out what's keeping you up at night. Where do you think your gaps are? Are you trying to downsize, upsize, grow? Are your clients pushing you to be more safety conscious? You know, what does it look like? And then we figure out where you want to go. But the easiest way to get started is we come in, we'll do a full inspection. We'll give you a massive to-do list that we write training purposes only. We don't actually want to give you an inspection because that means you have a lot of work to do, but we're going to give you an inspection that says training purposes only. We're going to educate you about what needs to happen. We're also going to show you what you need to have for training requirements. And we're also going to show you all the policies and procedures or pieces of paper that you're missing that's going to cost you a lot of money, Tiffany. So that's the best way for people to start. Some people just don't know where they are. And so the easiest way is for us to give them a snapshot to help them put together their plan of what they can do on their own.
Great. Thank you so much. That's really helpful. We do have another question. What is our liability if we have a third-party company that we outsource work to and they pick up or drop off items for us, but don't do any work for us on site?
Okay. So there's 4 buckets. Who created the problem? Who's controlling the situation? Who should have fixed the problem, and what employees are being exposed to that hazard. So what you have to identify is the people who are doing pickup and drop-offs. So they're employed by someone else. So while they're driving, right, they're contracted and someone's covering their workers' comp while they're driving, probably not you, right? But while they're on your building and in your property, picking up whatever it is that, or dropping off whatever it is they are. That is when you have risk. When they drop off or pick up something at the place where you're sending them to, that company now has risk, because what you are doing potentially impacting that employee, and what that employee is doing in your environment, in your space, creating a hazard, not fixing a hazard, exposing your employees potentially that hazard. You would be cited if you were found to go into any one of those 4 buckets. And so when OSHA comes in and does an investigation, they're going to look at all the companies that are involved, and they're going to say, some of you are going to go into this bucket, this bucket, this bucket, and this bucket. Your job is to put things in place to create layers to decrease the risk and likelihood that you get stuck in one of those buckets. Is there a way to 100% exempt you from everything? I get careful when I say 100% exempt, right? Are there ways to create lots of layers that distance you from the behavior of what that person is doing or not doing correctly? There are things that you can put in place. If
I'm muted, sorry.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any more questions at all? If you don't want to speak aloud, feel free to message me privately, and I'm happy to get those over to Darcy.
Other things, if you guys have anything to do with construction, there's a new thing coming out with hard hats in construction, which shouldn't apply to you. But there's a new directive, and fire brigades. So you guys should not be training your people in how to put out fires. If you have a unique situation, maybe so, but across the board in general, manufacturing should not be training their employees to put out fires. There's a thing on the books called the fire brigade that is all being changed in OSHA's regulation about use of fire extinguishers or training people to put out fires. It's also going to affect our police, fire, and EMS. Many of you guys may or may not know that in your states, right? Those entities typically fall under the Department of Labor, not under OSHA. A lot of states are making those shifts so that those municipalities are now falling under these OSHA guidelines. So fire brigades, that's another one. If you do fire training, teach your people on fire training, you should be looking up what the new fire brigade requirements are going to be. Forgot to say that one.
Cool, thank you. We do have another one. If OSHA does pay a visit to your facility and their inspection/questions are answered in the proper time, is there a time limit on how long it should or can take them to reply with their decision?
Yeah, so they have they have actually a directive that specifically tells them when they have to get things back to you or respond or whatever the case may be. It's all typically in writing. The part that takes the longest is if I come in and as an OSHA, if I was an OSHA inspector, I'm not, but if I was, and I came and did your OSHA inspection at the closing meeting, hear my words, closing meeting, when they sit down to you and they tell you all the things that they find, you need to ask them, is this the closing meeting? Or are you going back to your office and are you going to be emailing me, telling me that you want more stuff from me? Is this investigation still open? If something is closed, at the point when the investigation gets closed, then the timeline kicks off on them going back to the office, making sure their boss has to make sure that they didn't break any laws. You have to have broken a law for them to write it down on the report as being cited. Then they add the money to it, and then they'll actually send you the letter, which can take weeks. But the key here is if the meeting isn't closed when they leave that building, which a lot last year, because they had a lot of new agents. The truth is a lot of agents were learning last year. They didn't close it right away. They would go back to their office and they would say, can you send me a safety manual for this piece of equipment? Can you send me more pictures on this and this? And for weeks, we had to keep sending them stuff. And then they put us back on a webinar. They put us back on a Teams meeting. Then they officially closed it. And then the start time started, right? So the key for you guys is when OSHA leaves your building, you should already know all the things you're in trouble for. If they take a picture, you should take a picture. If they take a video, you should take a video. And then immediately when they leave, you should start fixing that stuff. Because when you get the letter, you only get 15 days to respond to OSHA. If you wait for that letter to start fixing stuff, you can't fix it in 15 days. You are going to stop production. People are going to be stressed out. It's going to be crazy to try to fix it in that window. So you should be starting right away, get the letter. And once the letter comes, then you should be asking for an informal meeting. And that's not where you take your attorneys. That's you literally having a conversation with them about the fact that you fix things and that this is the first time. And now that you know, you're not going to do it again. And it's about you having a mutually respective conversation so that you can get those fines reduced and get them blended because you've done some work while you were waiting for them to send the official letter.
Great, thank you. That's super helpful. And then in best case scenario, if they come and don't see anything wrong, should you contact them or leave it alone?
So if they come in and they do an investigation and they find nothing, which I have never seen, if they find absolutely nothing, it's just a low-hanging fruit. You guys, once you guys let them go out into your production floor, because they're going to ask to go see something. As soon as they walk through your production and you don't control it and you don't take them to the outside door and bring them in, they're going to see something. They're going to see that your fire extinguisher is on the floor. They're going to see that a guard is up on a piece of equipment. They're going to see that an employee has their eye protection on top of their head. They're going to, hear something, whatever the case may be. It's what's going to happen is OSHA gets to add things to their investigation if you create situations where they can add things to their investigation. So the truth is they never leave there without finding something. I told you, my buddy Chris, he got dinged $6,000 for an eye wash station. That's all they found. Okay. But they found something. So it's very rare, but you should actually have a plan on how to control and manage an investigation. OSHA will ask to do more things. If your people don't know any better, they're going to let them go do it. Or you could make the right statement, which is, hey, you told us that you were here only looking at forklifts. You told us that you were only here for noise. So we're only going to show and talk to you about noise. Okay. We agreed to that in the beginning of the meeting. If people don't know that, they're going to give them more access. I had a golf course last year that didn't know any better, and they let OSHA walk through the maintenance shed on a golf course. If you guys play golf, you should know how much trouble they got in, okay? Between fertilizers and poisons and sharp edges and not wearing like you guys, we were there for like literally a month. It was crazy. Don't do that. Do not do that.
That's really good advice. Thank you, Darcy. Does anybody else have any questions? Again, feel free to pop them to me if you aren't comfortable speaking. All right. So what can happen now is I'm going to send an email following this up. And I'm going to ask you guys to fill out a survey. Once you fill out that survey, I'm going to send over this slide presentation. The survey helps us for our mission of continuous improvement, of course. If you want to get in touch with Darcy, if you heard all this stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, I think I need someone to come and help me, then feel free to reach out. I'm going to have Rob's contact information in that email. And so you can reach out to him directly and he'll put you in touch with Darcy so that you guys can create a plan specific to your needs. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope that you have a gorgeous week. Thank you, Darcy. Thank you, Rob.
Everyone be safe.
Thanks,
Bye.
Darcy.